welcome to another episode of Watch with Ray from the Chick Lit Book Club podcast. If you did not see our first episode, this is a series. I do a similar series for B3 where we watch a movie outside of, or a TV show outside of like the general show, and I review it. Normally something new. So for this show, I wanted to do something similar, and we do have page to screen. And we do that. It used to be more often, and then we kind of cut it down. So I'm bringing it back a little bit, where it's something that's either like a book that's been made into a TV show or a movie or something along those lines, and we talk about it. For this, I've been wanting to do this show for a while. Not just this show, but I want to do the show I'm going to be talking about. And I talked a little bit more about it in the first episode, so I'm not going to get back into it. But we are reviewing today the second episode of Miss Scarlet and the Duke. And this is called The Woman in Red. And this again it's around the same, it's about an hour. As the other one was 60 minutes. So I'm looking at the episodes, they all run around an hour. So what's nice about this episode was so the first episode I watched on Amazon because you can watch it for free. And then this one I ended up having to move over to PBS All Access, which I really recommend. I really push for that because most of us already use and watch and love PBS. I think it's good for us to give a little bit of a kickback to them because for like an appreciation of all that they provide for us as a intellectual and historical and cultural outlet. I give every year, and that's how I have PBS All Access. So I have access to all the old episodes of everything. If I wanted to watch the new Sanderson, which maybe at some point I'll get to that. I'm not super thrilled. I really like the first season, but then Theo James isn't on anymore. So what the hell do I care at this point? Kidding. But it's Theo James, guys. He's beautiful. Anyhow, he's also a really good actor too. I mean, right? But hot. I mean, hot. Also, I mean, it's a unfinished Jane Austen. How much are you gonna do with it? Like, rest of then it just becomes like the Days of Our Lives via the Regency era, which is fine. But y'all know when I say it's fine, what I really mean. Anyhow, so I watched this episode. It's called The Woman in Red on Masterpiece app, which so like I said, all the episodes are about 60 minutes for this season. I haven't looked ahead to see if it's longer or shorter for the subsequent seasons after this. But so I watched it on the Masterpiece app, and Masterpiece Mystery on the app has a little homage to the Edward Gorey Masterpiece Mystery opening. If you have not seen it, I would recommend it. Please go and just find it on YouTube. If you adore cute cartoons about murder and mayhem, I would recommend it. It's awesome. Like, I actually said to my co-host for B3, I would love to have a alphabet book, and I think there is one out there of Edward Gorey designs and cartoons, and I would love it. So if anybody's got the 411 on that, I'm sure all I have to do is look on Amazon. Someone's got something somewhere. But Edward Gorey had such an interesting style. It's kind of once you see it, you'll understand. It's not frightening like the Gamel Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books, illustrations, which I have. But they're creepy in their own way, but at the same time kind of adorable. So I would recommend those. But anyhow, they have a small homage to that. because I think a lot of times most people, besides being Masterpiece Mystery, is that they remember it for is the Edward Gorey cartoons at the beginning, cartoon intro. So this episode is The Woman in Red, which the whole time I kept thinking, Lady in Red is dancing with me. I mean, like, if it is something that I could possibly sing, one of our author friends, I sent her a message because she sent us or we got her newsletter, and the title, the subject of the newsletter was One More Day, and immediately, where did my brain go? One more day to revolution, we will nip it in the bud. Oh, I mean, I'm that person. We have a joke with the rest. Like, here's a little private joke. From the podcast is, if there's a song, Ray's gonna sing it. If somebody finishes a sentence with a lyric from possibly a song, like a song, she's gonna sing it. It's just how it is. It's a sickness. It's an illness. Oh, do I have issues? Probably. So anyhow, the the episode. The episode starts with someone's lock picking this house. Can we all guess who it is? Of course, it's Eliza. She's lock picking now. She's trying to lock, she's breaking in. She's breaking in because this man who owns the house, the father of the house, master of the house. Okay, nope, gonna stop. The householder owes her money because she solved a case for him, and he felt, well, because you have a vagina, you don't need money, obviously. Like, you aren't as qualified as a man to do this job. Okay. Anyhow, so we learned that no one's paid her. She's had a number of cases and no one's paid her because she's a lady. So what she's wanting to do in this episode is raise her reputation. So right now she has none, and she's trying to build the reputation, like continue with the Scarlet Detective Agency, and because her building still says Henry Scarlet's detective agency. So she that's a lot of this episode, is building reputation and reputations in general, because it's not just hers we're talking about. We talk about Will's at some point. We talk about Rupert's. We talk about the suspect and the victim, their reputations. It's very interesting. I really enjoy the context and how it all blends together, and how we have this one general idea of reputation and how it plays out between all of the characters. It's really fascinating. So we she gets caught by this little ginger kid. It's like a little daywalker. That's a South Park reference. And she's the daughter of the client, and she's pretty much tells Eliza, hey, you got to give me the money you're stealing, or I'm gonna scream and you're gonna go to jail and you'll be there forever, and you will, yeah. And so Eliza's like, son of a bitch, you daywalker. And so she ends up giving her the money, and of course the kid screams anyhow, and Eliza dashes out and doesn't get caught, but still, little fucker. Anyhow, so the next trip is to the next scene we see Eliza sitting in Rupert, who has moved into his new home by himself, his new abode, which I want to say right now, guys, thank you. I was fucking right. And I didn't even know, but I knew, because he is got a friend who lives with him. I'm pretty sure they live together. I think that's what we're assuming with this. Dr. Morehouse, who is a gentleman, and Rupert it kind of breaks the news. Like, it's like so excited because he's also he's a patron to Eliza and her detective agency, but then he's also like, yeah, so FYI, I told my mom that you were the reason I moved out because you gave me the idea. And she's like, the fuck? And awesome. Also, Dr. Morehouse is like, he's over the top. Like, it's almost condescending how he acts with Eliza. Like, Rupert is sweet, and Rupert is foppishly adorable and charming. Dr. Morehouse is like, do you hit? Well, I can't. I don't want to do the. I don't want to do a like. Do you hit the criminal with your purse? I'm like, go fuck yourself, dude. She can shoot a gun. Like, I don't. How condescending is that? Anyhow, he means well. It's fine. Um. So mind you, like, she's looking around the I mean, it's beautifully decorated house. There's like this, I noticed it was so pretty. They had this arrangement of blue roses, which I was like, that's interesting. You don't see blue roses very at all I can think when I think of blue roses, I think of the Glass Menagerie and Pleurosis, and how everyone thought that, forgot the lead female's name, um she had, it was blue roses, but it was Pleurosis. Anyhow, just pleurisy as your lungs. Um, so anyhow, Liza goes home, and who's standing on her step? Mrs. Parker, Rupert's mom, standing there like, bitch, and angry, has the contract for the renewal of the rent. Didn't know that she was, it probably came out in the last episode and I didn't catch it, but Mrs. Parker is the landlady also for the Scarlet's house. And she's like, well, it's, renewals due. And she's like, well, why am I just hearing about this now? And she's like, well, because, I thought you were going to be my daughter-in-law, and so you're not. It's all due. And she's like, well, can I have like a payment plan? Can I pay you an installment? She's like, no, it's all due now, bitch. And so she's like, can I at least have a couple days? She's like, you have 3 days. 3 days to get, I can't remember how much she said it was, or if she did give an amount, a lot of money, more than Eliza had. Like, Eliza has $0 right about now. She, at one point, you find out she has $0. Anyhow, so she's talking to Ivy, who is pretty much the only servant that they have left, because the maid left that we met in the episode before. She's gone. She unfortunately had to leave. She's like, I hadn't gotten paid for 3 weeks. I'm sending that money home, or whatever, they would used to do. So Ivy's never gonna leave, because Ivy's like her mom, because I it's not indicated, but I'm pretty sure, and again, do not go by that fucking novella, because I mean, nah. We don't know for certain, but I'm pretty sure like Ivy helped Henry raise her. So so Ivy's not going anywhere, and Ivy hasn't gotten paid for 2 weeks either. Like, and she's like, well, are you going to leave me too? And Ivy's like, come on, bitch. Really? Come on. So one of the reasons that it's late Women in Red is because the episode's name is because Eliza's like, I think I know how to make some money, at least get a lead on some money, but I'm going to need my best dress, which I believe is my Scarlet dress. Is the Scarlet. I need it pressed. So where is she going, guys? Can you guess where she's going? She's going to see William. Of course, she's going to fucking see William. William, who is understaffed right now, like so understaffed, and there's like, it seems to be like murders going on all over the place. Like, London just, well, I mean, at this point, London was not the safest, unfortunately. So when London was pretty rough, because Jack the Ripper and all. Yeah, where else could at that point there are like 7 murders and no one and go unsolved? So they're understaffed, and she's like, how about this? How about I help you out? You hire me to be like a consulting detective, and that way I can help you out, and we can, and I can build my reputation. Again, because then he's like, oh yes, I've heard how many cases you had. And she's like, are you following me? He goes, Well, and I want to be like, well, duh. Unless, I mean, duh. One, he's in love with you, and two, like I'm sure promised your dad that he'd look out for you. So yeah, yeah, he's looking out for you. But anyhow, I mean, whatever. And if y'all remember, so the reason I think this is very fascinating, because I do not, and somebody please tell me in the comments if this is true. I do not believe in the original, like in the actual Conan Doyle story of Sherlock Holmes, what he had written, that he was a consulting detective. I thought he was just a detective. I thought that was for the B Batch, like reimagining, was that he was being paid by Scotland Yard as a consulting detective. Pause. Okay, I'm back. I was wrong. He was a consulting detective back then. You know how long it's been since I've read a Sherlock Holmes novel? It's been a while. Been a while. I it's I'm gonna go right on limb and say, guys, it was not my bag, which is fine. I mean, it's not everybody's bag. I really enjoyed the series with B Batch, but how could you not? I mean, come on. But it yes, he is a consulting detective, so he was getting paid. So yes, so that was not unheard of in Miss Scarlet's time here, is that could possibly have been. So please disregard what I said, because I am dumb. Mojave Desert. Anywho. So she's like, obviously just pay me by the case. And he's like, I don't think so. So what happens though is something happens where Will gets called out of the room, and he's kind of like, don't fucking touch anything. She's like, of course not. I'm gonna fucking touch everything. And so she goes over the mantle, and there's some opium in a vial. I'm like, okay, William's partying. There's a very scantily clad pornographic picture, like an old vintage porn picture, and there's a bottle of liquor he's been drinking too. So she's like, okay, the trifecta, throw in some fucking gambling, and we've got a party here. Like, huh. Well, maybe we need to have a conversation, a little come to Jesus there. And then as she's looking at through everything on his mantle, an officer comes in and was like, hey, this telegram is urgent, and it needs to go to Wellington, and he needs to see it right away. And she's like, of course, I'll make sure he sees it right away. It's kind of like Marky Mark in The Happening, where that old lady's like, you're trying to kill me, and he's like, no, we're not trying to kill you. Oh no. I'm like, that's kind of the same thing that's going on here. Sure, I'll sure make sure. I mean, like, short of stealing it, she reads it, which is hysterical, but she doesn't steal it. But she sees where the next where there's a murder happening. So well, it's already happened. It's not happening as as we speak. It's not but it's just happened, and they're calling for somebody from the yard. So she shows up at the Butler residence, and it has been and Sebastian Ridley, who is a Mayfair a saloon owner, gaming hell owner, has been murdered. He's found by Scarlet. His throat has been slit in the sitting room of the Butlers, and Mr. Butler is passed out next to him with the knife in his hand. So case closed, right? Right. Not so much. So Mrs. Butler, Tabitha, comes running in, screaming and crying, and Will is hot on everyone's heels and comes in and arrests Edward Butler right away. Obviously, he's got the fucking knife in his hand. And so out he goes. He takes him out, and we immediately, like, Will starts berating and like chastising Scarlet for, again, putting herself at the scene of a crime. And she's kind of like, well, what are you going to do about it? Like, oh, you can't stop me from doing this. And the next scene is her in front of a judge, pretty much stopping her from what she's doing. Like, he's charging her. She either has to spend 30 days in prison, or pay 40 shillings for impeding a police investigation. And Mrs. Butler happens to be, well, she goes to court and pays her fines, and then she's also wants to hire her to prove that her husband did not kill Ridley. And as they're meeting, she's talking about this beautiful coat she has that Edward gave her. It's a red coat, again, women in red. So it's this beautiful red coat with this like fur trim, boots with the fur. And she's talking about how it always Edward gave it to her so he could always see her. She'd always stand out in a crowd. He'd always be able to find her while she wore this. And so she's, I want to hire you, blah, blah, blah. And Eliza's like, okay, I'm just going to make sure before you sign on any dotted line, we all sign this and get together on a contract here, is that I'm going to get paid whether or not he is found guilty or not, because I'm pretty sure he's fucking guilty. And Tabitha's like, sure, yes, I will pay you. Money is no object. I will pay you one way or the other. Cool. So now Eliza starts her fucking investigation. She goes to Ridley's saloon where she stumbles upon Moses, Mr. Moses. As if you remember the last time we saw Mr. Moses, he was handcuffed to the gaming hell that Mrs. Sims was located at, which had a VD raid. So there was that. And he's menacing her. Like, she's like, are you gonna kill me? He's like, I'm not gonna kill you, Miss Scarlet. I want to hire you. He wants to hire her to so what he's saying is he was actually there to look through, he's trying to get into the safe, to Ridley's safe, because he knew that Ridley had this snuff box that his father, because he was Moses' father was a slave in, I think, Jamaica, I think he said Jamaica. And when he came to London, it was the only thing he had with him was the snuff box, and he wants it back because Mrs. Butler broke into the safe and cleaned it out. So Scarlett's like, interesting. So she goes to see Mrs. Butler the next day. Mrs. Butler's like, well, did you not get my letter last night? She's like, what are you talking? She's like, I no longer need your services. Your contract has been revoked. She's like, what? Okay. She's like, I'll still, you're still gonna get paid, but whatever. But she said, yeah, I think she said she's, or maybe they didn't talk about that. It doesn't matter. Literally doesn't matter. Anyhow, so she's kind of like, oh, I'm so upset. Can I just, I need a glass of water. And because Mrs. Butler was on her way to church. So she's like, yeah, whatever, my maid will get you some water. And of course, she pays off the maid to go upstairs to see where the crime scene, pretty much. And at the crime scene, she finds this carpet bag that Mrs. Butler used to steal all of Ridley's shit. And in this carpet bag, there's a snuff box, which she pockets. There's a wad of cash. And there's a letter. And the letter is addressed to Sebastian. And it's pretty much like a love letter. And it's signed TB. So you're like, oh, fuck. Well, that's what was happening, is that like Edward really did kill Sebastian because Tabitha's fucking Sebastian. Okay, well, case closed. All right, so the same time she goes to see Will, she finds out that Edward has put in a plea of guilty. Okay, so obviously he must have done it. However, there's something that's just the back of Scarlett's head, or Eliza's head, back of her head. Like, something's not adding up. So she she convinces the mortician, or the would have been the forensic, well, it was mortician probably at that point, that she is Will's wife, to get in to see the body, to see Ridley's body, because they're actually going to release it. Because if Edward says, hey, yeah, I did it, there's no reason they can go now bury it. They don't need to hold it for evidence. So Eliza's, they Will and the mortician, the medical examiner or whatever, catch Eliza pouring over the body where she's not supposed to be, and she finds out that the the killer the has the wound is from a right-handed killer, and Edward's left-handed. And it's a very controlled cut, which would mean that it was not a frenzied kill. So doesn't make sense that it would be in the midst of a fight. All of a sudden, Edward cuts Sebastian. Doesn't make any sense. And also, Sebastian's got a tattoo of a rose on his arm. It looks like those same roses that she saw at Rupert's house. Provocateur. So she decides to go see Rupert because she's like, there's a really sweet, what I really like about the show is that they do these flashbacks. So to like kind of get insight into how she's solving things, she kind of has these like, she talks to her dead father, like she talks to the ghost of her father. And it's kind of like, it's a really nice vehicle, or like that's not the word I'm looking for, conceit of how she can then glean the information or apply the information that Henry has taught her through the years. And here she's kind of like, a body with a tattoo is like an open book, and it's a canvas that kind of like tells so many different stories. And so she realizes the tattoo means way more than anything, especially it's a hidden tattoo. It's not one to be seen. And that it's very important. Like it's something important enough that you put it on your body and then you've hidden it, double meaning. So she obviously places the rose at, would have been similar to Rupert, what she saw at Rupert. So she goes to his house and she's like, I knew I saw this. I just found this same rose on Ridley's body. And he's like, oh, and you could tell he's very upset. Rupert is just, I love Rupert's character. I love him so much. And this is pretty much where Rupert comes out to Eliza. And it's so beautiful / heartbreaking / everything. Because she's mentioning when she met Dr. Morehouse, he too had a blue rose on his lapel. And what we find out is Sebastian was actually gay. And because she mentions, she's like, oh, well, he was having an affair with Tabitha. He says, Mr. Ridley had huge appetites for many things, but women were not one of them. Come to find out. And he actually says, he's like, it's what's most disturbing about this whole thing is that his love, the love of his life, murdered him. He's like, wait, what? He's like, oh yes, Teddy. TB. Sneaky. So just that's sneaky, but just anyhow. So what we find out, and we have this beautiful inner exchange, because Rupert pretty much says, he comes out and is like, the way he says it is like, I could never have married you because I'm not, my leanings aren't to women. It's to, as he called it, like-minded fellows. And I just loved that. I loved it. And so Ridley would have these nights at his saloon for like-minded fellows, and you'd get in with a rose on your lapel. And I think there's just something just so wonderful about that there was at least one fucking day that these men could go and be with each other in a safe space and just be themselves. And I think that's awesome. because there's something that comes up later. What I really enjoy about this whole thing is they talk a little bit about what it is like, because as much as I I love historical romances. Love them. I love like revisionist sort of history when it comes to some of that stuff. Like they'll throw gay characters in, or anybody, like characters on the LGBTQ spectrum, which is great and I love it. However, a lot of times they kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Pack them to fit, or kind of like make it work where it unfortunately didn't work. And that's, so you gotta also be realistic. Um, because we can't whitewash what happened to these poor people. Like, I mean, what comes down, what there's, and what Rupert brings up and later Teddy talks about is the best case scenario if you got caught being gay at this time was, and you were called out for it, would be, best case was 10 years hard labor. If you even made it that far, 10 to 1, you would probably be murdered in prison or something. If you even made it to prison, because probably what would have happened would you've been beat to death by somebody, because that's how it was. And what's more realistic is the people who got away or it was overlooked for were more of the peerage, the ones who were more, the wealthier of the English set, because you were considered eccentric or something along those lines, or like everyone kind of left you alone because it was like not a big thing if you were a lifelong bachelor, if you're a man. Now if you're a woman, oh fuck, you're fucked. I mean, like, um or if you're bisexual, again, you're fucked. But like if you were gay man, at least you could live somewhat, like no one called into question if you were not married. A woman who was not married, my God, by 24, you were fucking on the shelf and dead. I mean, dead to the world. So fuck. Um, and then if you liked women, oh, you're done. You're done. Um, so it was. I really liked the angle that this show took. It was very much very realistic, truthful. Like, here's how it is. The other thing I really like about this show is that Eliza and William are not upper class. Like, she's not like Lady Eliza. She's middle class, because at this point in history, you are getting the like uprise, like the uprising, the stabilization of and accumulation of somewhat wealth of the middle class. So you've had, this is like, you have working class, but you have two different kinds of working class. You have working class, which is like your factory workers and things like that, your unskilled labor, and then you have like your middle class at this point were your police officers, your doctors, your lawyers, your I'm trying to think of anything up like pretty much higher up in the police, because some of them would still consider just like ball base, might be still considered unskilled. But if you've had so many, like if you're a sergeant or a captain, I don't know, they're different there, so I can't, lieutenant, something like that, you would be pretty close up to like more of a middle class standing. So, and also at the same time, you had the transition from Bow Street Runners, which were like early police, to actual Scotland Yard policemen. So you've had that too. And so like this, what I love about this show is it's not, because let's be honest, if we're reading historical romances, we're reading for, the carriages and the dresses and the balls and the tone and blah 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 blah. And I've read a couple, like and there's a few really good working class romances. Otherwise, it's kind of like everyone forgets about them. And I think that's what luckily, I guess it was never a big thing for me, but I liked Downton Abbey because they did show the upstairs and the downstairs. Actually, there's a show called Upstairs Downstairs too, if you really, really enjoyed seeing both of the dichotomy of both classes. But again, that's still like two classes. That's it. You got the serving class and you got the upper class. You don't have a middle class when it comes to Downton Abbey either. Downtown Abbey, Downtown Funk. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox and continue going. But some one thing I do like about this show is that like we're showing a middle class pairing, or just people in the middle class functioning and living their lives. And I'm sure by the end we have 3 seasons, so I'm assuming that Eliza does become successful. Her dad was successful, so anywho. So she takes the opium box to Moses. She's going to see Moses, and as she's at Ridley's, she finds Moses passed, or like knocked out, almost dead. Like she thinks he's dead, and she dispatches of the 2 villains that had accosted him, and she finds out that the snuff box is filled with very like high potency opium, like severe. Like all she had to do was open it, and the guy and one of the thieves breathed it and immediately went boom, went back. So yeah, so she's got some questions. Fortunately, Moses has some answers, because Moses was also the doorman for these Blue Rose Nights at Ridley's. And so he said, she's like, who supplied this opium? And he's like, well, you need to talk to Dr. Morehouse, because that's who is supplying the opium. Come to find out, Ridley had the opium because he had a terminal illness. That was how Morehouse was treating it. Was pretty much like, for the pain, was this really high potency opium. And that's why he had it on him. That's why he had it. However, so then that we find out that there's this terminal illness, so he's dying. And what Eliza then also finds out, she realizes that is Ridley wrote a suicide letter. She puts this all together, is that Ridley wrote a suicide letter, which Tabitha found, because she came across this, like, so what happened was, okay, solving the mystery. Ridley asked Teddy to go away with him because he's dying. He's like, can you at least go with me, and you can be with me, take care of me while I'm dying. And he's like, dude, no, I can't. I can't leave Tabitha. If I leave her, I'm like pretty much leaving her to be, to be destitute, because will be mired in scandal. She won't have no one will she won't be able to, she will have no money. Like, and what are we gonna do? We're gonna go live, and I have no means to make money. So what happens when I leave with you? You die, I come back. No, I can't do that. And he's, kind of like, I still, even though I'm not in love with her, I do love Tabby, and I want to make sure that she's not, I have to stay with her. And so Ridley kind of, this is his fuck you to him. What he did is he comes to Teddy's house, and he has a suicide letter, and it's pretty much like, fuck you, you wouldn't leave with me. He ends up punching Teddy, cutting his own throat, dying. I mean, because it's very controlled. It's enough that he bleeds out. But before he does that, puts that knife right in Teddy's hand. So he sets Teddy up to like be fingered for his murder. Teddy got fingered. It's Freddy got fingered, but I still thought it was pretty funny. Anyhow, because I'm dumb. Anyhow, so Tabby finds this letter, and that's why she finds it that night, the night that that she's signed the contract with Eliza, saying, that's why that night Eliza supposedly gets another letter saying the contract is null and void, and she's breaking her contract is because she's like, fuck it, because she didn't know up until then is that Teddy was, one, gay, and two, cheating on her. And so she's kind of like, you can fuck it, I don't care. And so she makes it like as if she's leaving town. She's pretty much told everybody, I'm peacing out, peacing out. What she's doing, because it's England in 1880, and what they did is they didn't wait around. There was no there were no appeals. When you were found guilty, you were taken immediately out back and executed. And they so really that's pretty much what happens, is like, is he is found guilty. At the same time she's telling people, I'm peacing out, he's like going to the gallows. She didn't peace out. She puts on her fucking red coat and she goes to the gallows because she wants him to see her. She's also holding the one piece of fucking evidence that will exonerate him. But Eliza knows that, and she, at the last minute, she finds him, or she finds Tabby, and she says, kind of like, fuck you, you're wearing that coat because you know he'll see you in the crowd, and you were gonna let him die over pride. And so she finally gives her the letter, which exonerates him, because it exposes him and exonerates him at the same time, which is horrible. So she gets he gets his charges dropped. He is then meeting with Will and Eliza, and he's like, I thank you for what you've done, Miss Eliza, but at the same time, I'm condemned to a life of, I don't know. We don't know what happens to them. We know what happens to Tabby. She gets arrested because she did steal evidence, and she did impede on an investigation. So she still has to go to jail. But at the same time, like, yeah, I would assume that the two of them are not going to get back together. We are never, ever, ever getting back together. Veronica, when you're watching this, boom. Wait, that's Taylor Swift, right? I don't know. I think. Okay. Anywho, uh, but there's a really nice exchange between Will and Eliza here. Again, we're talking about reputation, because Eliza lets Will think that Tabby's going to the train station. So she's like, go catch him, go catch her, go. And she wasn't at the train station. And he's like, why did you let me do that? She's like, because I needed this win. My reputation needed this win. And he's like, what about my reputation with my like support, like my the people I answer to? She's like, you you can handle them. You can handle everyone. And he says, cannot handle you. And I was like, oh, my heart hurts. Because he can't. But the tension right there in the scene is like fucking like a knife. It's awesome. She also tells him at one point earlier on, dude, you'd be better detective if you fucking cut out all the whoring, drinking, and drugs. But so the other thing that and again, I'm going back to what Teddy says to the two to Will and Eliza, is like, best case scenario is 10 years hard labor. Now imagine hard labor is not what, it's not making license plates. It's working in the yard and pretty much breaking rocks all day. That's all you're doing. Or you're moving rocks from one side of the prison to the other. That's it for 10 years. Again, best case. But what I really do like is there was a part where um Eliza gives Will, like, right before they go to see Mrs. Butler. She pretty much tells this, so this is what's happening. And Will's not phased by it. And she's like, kind of like, kudos to you. You're not, this does not bother you. This is not phasing you at all. And like, two gay men, not, he's kind of like I I've seen a lot, and as long as no one's hurting each other, it doesn't bother me. I don't care. And I was like, that's such an awesome stance. It's like, you're not hurting anybody. I don't care. I don't care what you do. Just, whatever. And for that time period, I mean, like, now we would like to have more acceptance and also like support. But for that time, that's a win. That's a W. The other thing is, at this point, we have to tie up our ends with Rupert and Rupert's mom and the lease. And she was able, so Eliza Rupert comes home and Rupert's waiting for her, and his mom is in the and he's like, I tried to talk my mom out of gave you more time. She's like, that's okay, no worries. But he's there because he's so worried. He's like, I don't know what you're gonna say in the heat of the moment, like what secrets will be, what the slip of a tongue would be. And she says, beautiful, Rupert, if anything were to be said, like if that comes out at all, it won't be from me. It will not be because of me. I will never relinquish your secret. And it's just a beautiful scene because you can just see the stress on him and how he's just he's just got this tumultuous look on his face. And when she says that, it's just, I really enjoyed this character quite a bit. He's very multifaceted. And then she pays Mrs. Parker with that cash that she stole from Mrs. Butler. That wad of cash, man, was actually from Mr. Ridley, but still. And the rest of the money she uses to hire Moses to collect some debts, man. He goes back to the Daywalker's house and get some money. So yeah, that's the end of the episode. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I did not do a rating on the episode prior, so I'm going to do that now. I would say I'm going to give, for overall the episode 1, I'm going to give it probably a B. The storyline, like I guessed at, I like the setup, so I like, because we're pretty much setting up the characters. So I think the mystery itself was kind of like lackluster because we were setting up the characters. We weren't really caring about the mystery as much. Here, I'm going to say B+. I really enjoyed, even though I guessed what was happening pretty early on. I really enjoyed it. I love the chemistry. Chemistry between all the characters was fantastic. So, all right, that is that. We have an episode coming up. We're going to be recording this weekend, so we'll have an episode out next week on It's a Monster Romance. I can't remember the name of it right now. But we just released one last week on so if you're looking for something to listen to on St. Patrick's Day while you're making your corned beef, we have an episode of Off the Map by Trish Dollar about escapades through Ireland. So imagine Leap Year / The Matchmaker. But yeah, sort of the same thing. American girl, Irish guy, off-roading in Ireland. Yeah, so I guess I will see you again. So you can find us at our website, which is chicletbookclubpodcast.com. You can email us at chicletbookclubpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can go, if you're you're obviously on our YouTube, so our link tree is there, so you can find all of our different places. We're on Twitter. We don't release it very much. Instagram, and Veronica handles the Devil's App Twitter or TikTok. So on that note, I'm gonna say happy reading.